know that.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome. See a number of people. I know and some that I don't. Hello, Sacramento. It's been a while. And we had 60 people signed up, and we got about 23 in now. So we'll get going, and then people will come in as they can. But I'd like to say it's great to see everybody, though I'd rather see everybody in person. But welcome to our meeting. Many of you know me, but many of you don't. I'm Lee Steinstorfer. I'm the executive director of the K12TF Forum and one of the co-founders. And we hold these meetings usually at least once a month, if not more, and decided to hold this one so that all you could get updated on all that's going on with E-rate and other funding sources. So we're just going to take a minute as people come in. We just quickly always do this. We introduce you to the Tech Forum, and I guess I should get my slides showing the right way. There we go. Okay, you should be able to see that. And I think I have the right date. But today we're going to have Mindy Fiscus from the state, who's a state E-rate expert. She's going to be filling you all in on this. So we're going to turn it over to her in a minute. But we always want to make sure that we thank you guys for what you do, especially now as crazy as it's been. And for those of you who don't know me, prior to doing the Tech Forum and working with this GHA company, I was a tech director for many years, and I was at Zion Benton High School, close to Sacramento, before I retired in 2016. So I'm very aware of the world you're in, though not the COVID world. I was, I suppose, lucky in some ways not to be doing your job, and that's why I want to thank you, because this is really demanding on you guys, and I feel it every day as I talk to you people. So we do appreciate what you do. And we do have, the Tech Forum is comprised of, I have a board of that advises what we do. And Lynn Williams is the iTech coordinator at K26. And she's going to just mention a little bit about who else is on our board.
Hi, everybody. Good to see y'all. Thanks for taking time out of crazy, crazy busy days here. So I know I'm looking forward to hearing from Mindy and hearing all about E-rate. But as a board, we get together often to figure out, like, what are those hot topics? What is it that would be helpful for all of us to know at different points in the year? We will be getting together next month to kind of map out next year. So if anybody has any ideas or has any thoughts of this would be really helpful at this point in the year to talk about or bring people in, just let us know. Here's the board. We can put emails on there too. But Dimitri is over, he's the tech director over in Libertyville, previously over at Hawthorne. Myself, Sarah joined us this year. She's the assistant superintendent at Oak Grove District 68. Tom Ferlin joined us this year as the tech director at Grant High School. And then Phil Hintz is he's the student information director over at Barrington. And then he was previously tech director over in Gurnee for quite a while. So it's a board that has a lot of years experience in various roles, technology related roles. So again, we are going to be meeting next month. So if you have some ideas, or during the year, next year, if you ever feel like, hey, it would be really helpful to talk about whatever it is, because technology is no longer just technology. It just seems like everything, every new initiative, everything is somehow technology related. So we do try to map things out and target our superintendents and business managers and, everybody, special ed, coaching, whatever it is. So if you have any thoughts, any suggestions, contact one of us. We'd be happy to talk it over and get something set up.
Yep. Thanks, Lynn. And we'll be talking throughout the meeting about filling out the meeting survey, and that really helps us, because in there you have the opportunity to give us suggestions of what you'd like us to cover. And just to know that some of you may have seen this, we have a website that's up there on the screen, and there you can find out what upcoming meetings are. You can register there, and we also have a place up there called past meetings. So we try to take good notes, and like this meeting is recording right now, And where it's appropriate, we record meetings and then share those so you can go back later. So you don't have to worry about taking super meticulous notes. You can go back later and follow up on it. So just our future meetings really quick, they're there. And May 19th, we are reaching out to the network and tech support group. And if you have people in your district who would like to get together to talk about the really geeky stuff, as we say, we're going to be talking about cybersecurity, very important topic. And we have some great guests that are going to be there, some products and so forth we're going to talk about. And then in June, we're just going to have an open meeting. Y'all are welcome to come, and just to kind of let you guys talk about what you want to talk about and what's going on in the future. And then we'll have another tech support meeting in the summer with those people. And then we'll be planning next year in the summer. The survey that I mentioned, if you could do that, there's just some things that provides feedback, influences future meetings, but this is the wrong meeting, so never mind. But for the next meeting, we have lunch cards, so forget that. We participate in the Kensington. Kensington has some product testing things you can do. They give you some great free stuff, and it's actually really good. They don't expect anything from you except to try it and answer the questions if you like it or not. So if you want an access to try some of their really good stuff, and this isn't just keyboards, it's a lot of good equipment that they'll send it right to you and you can try it out. So that's one of the nice things in my position working for a company like GHA. They have access to all these partner companies who help give us some cool stuff for our meetings and like provide lunch cards and things like that. And that's GHA is the company, and Sacramento will remember those because we used to purchase from them. So that's our spiel beforehand, and I want to get to why you're here, and you're here to hear from Mindy. And what prompted us to do this is I'm dealing with a lot of schools, a lot of rumors about the funding that's out there and where E-rate's going and what money's there and how it can be used. And there's a lot of conflicting stories going around, and we wanted to kind of pull it all together and let you guys hear from someone who would know as well as anybody around here what's going on, if it's possible to know, because it is government, so things are changing quickly. So I'm going to turn it over to Mindy, and I'm going to stop sharing. And Mindy Fiscus is the Digital Access Coordinator for the LTCs, the Learning Tech Centers of Illinois, and she gets all over the state, meeting with all you school people and keeping up to date on a lot of great things, and particularly E-rate and funding issues. So Mindy, it's all yours.
All right. Hopefully you all can now see my slides and hear me. And we can get started. So again, thank you for joining today. And thank you to Lee for giving me this opportunity to reach out and talk to all of you. I recognize a lot of your names and faces through the chats. Many of you have worked with me on your E-rate applications in the past, and many of you use consultants for E-rate. So you only see me at the beginning of the year, typically, when I do updates for what is new with the program. So, and I keep seeing more and more people entering the room. So hopefully we'll have a nice, good crowd today. If you find that you have any questions along the way, please feel free to either unmute yourself or use the chat to ask those questions. And our partners here have offered to kind of maintain that chat for me if I don't see it, and make sure that your questions get answered. This year is the E-rate Essentials 2021 Year of Opportunities, but now you can see I've kind of changed the logo up just a little bit because we are breaching into 2022 updates and other funding opportunities. So today we're going to touch on maybe all of those, hopefully the things that you have been hearing about out in the cyberspace about funding that is coming your way. So for those of you who have not met me before, my name is Mindy Fiscus, and I am the Digital Access Coordinator. I also serve as one of your 2 state E-rate coordinators for the state of Illinois. But my world is bigger than just E-rate. So I deal with everything that is broadband, federal funding, federal initiatives, and state initiatives. So I happen to have a wealth of knowledge I'm bringing to the table today, not just about the E-rate program, but all of those programs related to E-rate. And there are several out there currently this year. I do serve as the Illinois representative in CETA, which is the State Education Technology Directors Association. So that is the educational technology leads for each state. We do have an association where we meet nationally, and I serve on their board as well. So happy and pleased to be a part of that organization. And I'm part of the State E-Rate Coordinators Alliance. And so you will hear me talking a little bit later about some organizations who have been really doing a lot of advocacy around home connectivity, and CETA and SECA are two of those organizations. So prior to being the digital access coordinator for our statewide LTC, I was the director for Southern Illinois Learning Technology Center 6. And so several of your names that I see in the chat are from our Southern group of Illinois. And so please hold off harassing me in front of our Northern friends. So we do have a wide variety of people from all over the state with all different backgrounds. So hopefully I will have something for each of you. I am going to talk about all of these things today. I'm just going to touch on some of the programs that we have as it relates to E-rate and state matching grant and the things that are less bold here. I'm going to spend most of our time talking about the new funding, which is the emergency broadband benefit and the emergency connectivity fund. But I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the other funding sources too, just so that you can have the whole round picture. So when it comes to E-rate, which again is my biggest hat that I wear as your state E-rate coordinator, right now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the E-rate program, it does cover district connectivity and network equipment. And notice that I said district there because we are going to talk about homes today. But the discounts that you get for the E-rate program are based on your student lunch program. So that's National School Lunch Program, or NSLP. And so depending on the poverty level of your students and how many of those students participate in the program, the greater the number of students, the greater your discount level in the program. There is a stuff budget, I like to call it, that lasts for 5 years, and it does start the 21-22 school year. So those of you who leveraged E-rate for stuff, internal connections, network equipment, this is the first year for that. But if you didn't, no fear. There are 4 years left in this cycle, and those budgets are based on population. So if you are interested in finding more out about E-rate, the E-rate process, the budget for category 2 or things like that, please feel free to reach out to me via email. We do have a lot of resources on our LTC site for E-rate. I tend to do several webinars a year and record those. I have demos of applications, and we also try to really hold your hand through the process if you are filing on your own. Also, if you choose to use a consultant to file for you, that is fantastic. And if you're choosing to go that route, but you just kind of want an overview of what the program changes are each year and what you can or can't ask for, what that looks like, we do usually do a update of general updates and program rules with the K12 forum here each year. So people tend to log into that update and get an overview, even if you're paying someone to do it, the hard work for you here. But it is a lengthy application process. That's the one disadvantage to E-rate. We do start in the winter prior to the following school year. So we are through the application cycle and the initial applications for this next school year for 21-22. But we are ready to get started with approving that funding and moving forward with the next school year. Our next series of trainings covered for the 22-23 school year will usually begin with our 470 windows in November, December. Again, we do have a page on our website for the E-rate services here. And at the end of the presentation, I'll be giving you guys the link so that you can come back and click these links yourself. But our website is just ltcillinois.org. And you can find E-rate there, as well as a wealth of services for professional learning and SOPA resources, etc. So if you are in the middle of the E-rate application process, or if you are supervising someone else is doing it for you, you are right here. We are in between the 471. That deadline has passed. It was March 25th. You are either in PIA review, or you are getting approval and getting ready to commit to those services with your 46. So this is the time of year that I remind you to look out for those questions that are coming from your reviewers. Make sure that you answer them fully. And then when you do get that funding approval, you need to file a 46, which commits to the funding as well as certifies that you're filtering harmful content from students. So that is the next step in the process. And then we're also thinking about wrapping up your school year this year, filing for reimbursement if you have paid your entire bill all year, filing a bear form or a 472 to invoice USAC and get reimbursed for your federal funds. So that's kind of where we are in the process this year. Again, if you find yourself in a hiccup or you need some help, let me know. We had several districts that we had filed appeals for this year, and lots of them just got approval for their appeals this week. So I'm really happy about that, and their applications will be moving forward as well. So again, here to help you with the E-rate process. In addition to E-rate, there are a lot of other funding sources out there. The first one I'll touch on today is the Illinois Classroom Connectivity Project State Matching Grant. So this is put out from the State Board of Education. We are currently waiting for that grant to be released for the 21-22 school year. And what this grant does is pay for the build of construction. So you apply for E-rate for a special construction build, which means you will own that fiber that you are putting in. Many times it is used for connectivity between buildings in a district. Lots of times it's also used for connection to the world. That special construction cost is eligible for E-rate. What the state matching grant does is that it chips in and covers the rest of the build for you. So if you are a 70% discount and you leverage the state matching grant, you get a bonus on the E-rate side. They up your 70% to 80%, and then you can get the 20% paid for by the state matching grant. So it is a great opportunity. It's been out for about 5 years now. It started with around $17 million in it, and the fund is now down to about 13 million that's left. So still a significant amount left. We've helped roughly somewhere between 30 to 40 districts with special construction charges over the last few years. And I think we've got somewhere between a half dozen to a dozen applicants that are waiting for the grant to be released right now so that they can leverage that fund and get the rest of their builds paid for the 21-22 school year. So if that's something that you are interested in, know that that opportunity is available to everyone. It does not matter on the poverty level. I have had some districts reach out and say providers are saying to them they won't be eligible because they're not poor enough. That is not the case. You could be getting a 50% discount and the state matching grant will bump in and pay for the other 50%. So please know that is available to everyone statewide. And I expect it will continue to be available until those funds are depleted. And again, there's still $13 million in that fund. So please do know that that's an option for you. In addition to that, we also have, I'll say it's fairly new, a couple years old state consortium that you can apply for. It is run by the Department of Innovation and Technology, or DO-IT, for the state. They are the department that runs our state network, the Illinois Century Network. And so this consortium was put forward for those who want to leverage and connect to the state network. They will do the E-rate application for you to connect to them. Meaning that they will do a consortium to leverage the funding to pay for the last mile back to ICN for your district. And they handle the E-rate applications. They also negotiate all of those state transport lines back to their network and continue to file those E-rate forms for you and that connectivity. As a bonus for our public K12 schools, they will also pay your non-discounted share of those transport lines. So if you choose to go ahead and participate in the consortium, which is an option for you, not only will they pay for the connection back to the state network, but they will also currently pay for the portion that the school district would traditionally pay. So that is a really cool option for Illinois schools, in particular the public schools who are eligible. Our private schools, libraries, let me think, some of the charter schools, the classifications on charter schools are sometimes public and sometimes private. It's hard to tell. But for those of you in consortiums and things like that that are not considered public schools by ISB, you would still be able to participate here. You just would not get your non-discounted portion paid for. They are also welcoming participants. If you want to go out and bid out and pay for your transport back to them yourself, that's great. They'll still give you the internet access for free. So know that those are options for you moving forward. You can reach out to your local regional technology center staff, which is the RTCs for, you can find this at illinois.net, which is the overall website for the consortium, and Do It ICN. So you do have to fill out a letter of agency to participate. It's agreement that says you will be working with them, and circuit information that gives them the number of circuits that you're interested in and the speed of those circuits, etc. So you do need to get that information filled out for them. They are trying to get ahead of the ball, which is something that we're not quite used to here in the state of Illinois. So they're really looking to get everybody signed up for the 22-23 school year start by May 31st of this year. They will be having a webinar on May 20th if you want to find out more, but they're trying their very best to get everybody signed up so they can hit the ground running with their procurement and a 470 as soon as after July 1st that they can do it and get that out there. The wheels turn so slowly in procurement in the state of Illinois that they're really just trying to get it out as soon as at all possible so that they can have a little faster process each year than they've had the year before. So if you are interested, please do sign up by May 31st by filling out those two forms. If you need assistance or help in filling out those forms, the RTC staff is there, but you can also reach out to me and I would be happy to either connect you with someone or walk you through the process. Again, illinois.net is the site for them, and they do have a webinar scheduled for May 20th. I think that's on their site, but if not, you should see it shortly. So I did get the calendar, save the date from them. I'm a part of that panel, and I got that yesterday. So it should be posted shortly if it's not yet. So both of those being our state connections, there is a whole nother office that is not directly related to education, but is through the governor's office, and it's through the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, or DCEO. That is the Illinois Broadband Office, and they run a program that's called Connect Illinois that hopefully many of you have heard about. I know it's been in the news where we've seen that the governor gave $400 million to Connect Illinois and the broadband initiatives, and that $400 million is being spent in a lot of different ways. Some of that is the Illinois Century Network, or ICN support, so support for the state network and to really grow it and expand it. Some of that is to provider grants, so builds in areas that don't currently have connectivity. And so some of that funding is going to providers in those areas to expand into underserved areas. In addition to that, they have a really interesting program that are community grants. So these are considered planning grants. They are about $10,000 for each one. They are currently in their second round of these grants. I think they awarded 10 the first time, and I believe it's 15 in the second round that they're either planning to award or just did. These grants can be applied for by school districts. So if you are interested in leading that community conversation, you are welcome to apply for that grant, but you might also find, if you visit their website, that someone else in your community, be it a local library or a health department, or even the United Way for your area, can apply for this grant. And the point of the $10,000 grants is to really build a community roundtable discussion and start planning for how to support broadband in your area. And so I know there are at least 5 school districts involved thus far who are kind of taking the lead and being the grant manager for those programs. And you can use, there's a wide variety of things that you can use that $10,000 for, but you are required to put together a community conversation group and a board that will talk about connectivity and how it will expand in your area to support not just K-12 education, but higher ed, healthcare, local governments, etc. So that is meant to be and drive community action towards broadband connectivity. They also have a broadband advisory council that is featured on their website. You can kind of see who is on that council. We have taxpayers and local business owners, as well as broadband providers. So there's a variety of people within that council that kind of drive the actions of the organization. They also put together a mapping project with one of their partners where they're trying to map out and provide where the connectivity is in the state of Illinois, what speeds that connectivity is at. And I believe they are at the stage now where they want people to come in and start like clicking on it and taking a speed test and verifying that the connectivity levels they say you have in your area are accurate or not. So they're really working on improving the data that we have around where our connectivity is and how robust that connectivity is in those locations. So that mapping project is pretty exciting. It is a group that used to work with Education Superhighway and is now broken out on their own and is doing the mapping with them. So they are partnering with them in that. They also have multiple other state and federal partners that they're working with. One of them is computers to people or people to computers or something like that, where they're actually working on giving free access of devices out to low-income homes through those computers to people project as well. So a lot of different really cool things that are not specific to take K-12 education, but definitely impact the space that we work in. And now for the new money. So there is new money this year related to COVID. And the next three things I'm going to talk about are probably why you came here today. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is the Emergency Broadband Benefit, otherwise known as EBB. It is a federal FCC program that was funded through one of our CARES, I believe it was the CARES Relief, which is the second part of funding. It is for home internet access discounts for those who are below the poverty line. So I'm saying going to be because it is active as of May 12th, but it is a program for home access for anyone. It can be tapped into by K-12 students, but it can also be tapped into your neighbors who do not have students in their household. So it is going to be managed by USAC. And is modeled after their Lifeline program. So most of you are probably familiar with USAC because they manage the E-rate program, but they also manage several other programs for the FCC. And this one is kind of hinging off of Lifeline and the benefits that it has provided to rural poverty areas. Internet access discounts here through this program will be $50 a month access. So if you want to participate and are eligible for the program, if your provider is participating in the program, you can contact your provider and you can get $50 off of your access a month. So if your bill is only $40 a month for internet, that would be free access to that household. If your bill is a $75 a month charge for internet, it would go down to $25 if you took that $50 discount. So that's huge in the whole scheme of things. It also provides up to $100 towards a device. And some of the partners do offer devices as part of the program. Typically those are wireless providers. So it may be like a handheld connected device like a tablet or something that would be available. There is a co-op with that $100. So you as the recipient of the device would be responsible for the excess charge, which would be somewhere between $10 to $50. And that was the amount that they gave for the EBB program. It was released on February 25th. The legislation came out and kind of put it into play at that point. That's why I believe it was the CARES relief package, because I don't think that we got the American Recovery Package until March. So that was February 25th. There is $3.2 billion in the fund for this program. It is a nationwide program, and the eligibility is for those in poverty. So any home that has access or taps into SNAP, Medicaid, security income, federal public housing assistance, any of those assistance programs would be eligible for this program, including the National School Lunch Program. So all of the students who are eligible for NSLP in your school, their homes would be eligible for this project. So if they are interested in getting that discount, and if you want to help spread the word to them, I'm sure that there are several homes that could benefit from this. This also includes that community eligibility provision for those of you who give free lunch to all of your students all the time. I do understand that right now there is an emergency in place and everybody is getting free lunch due to a federal waiver, but I'm talking about those school districts that participate in CEP and give free lunch no matter what. whether we are in COVID crisis or not. If you participate in CEP, all of the students in your building are participating in the National School Lunch Program, and all of them would be eligible for this program. So that is huge for those CEP schools and the communities that they reside in. It also, anybody who has a Pell Grant, so if you have a college student with a Pell Grant in that household, you can leverage that as your eligibility factor, as well as, and I don't think that we have in our state many tribal program eligibility people, but if we do, it's even a higher discount rate for those who leverage tribal programs. So please know that this is available. Starting May 12th, you can sign up online for the program. But really, they're encouraging you to go look at the list of providers by state. And I'll see if I can click that link and if it will show it. Oh, good, it worked. So if I click on Illinois, you can see we have lots of different providers in our state that are participating. And if you are, know that you have students that are eligible for the program and you see a provider in your area that is providing internet access to those homes, you can reach out to the provider. Some of the providers can automatically enroll you from their side of things, which is the expedited way of doing it. But there is also a form, I'm trying to see how to go about making myself full screen again. Sorry about that. There we go. There is also a form that opens up on May 12th where you can sign up directly from the form and they will connect you with a provider. It seems to be a little bit smoother of a process if you go to the provider first and they can directly enroll you. So again, more information about this program is available on the USAC site, and that website is getemergencybroadband.org. Again, at the end of the presentation, I will be sharing a link for this slide deck. So you will have access to all of these slides and can share this with others, as well as click on all of the links. They are all live from this Google slide deck, and you'll be able to follow those later. But if you're writing it down or want to take notes, it is getemergencybroadband.org for EBB. The other program that I'm here to talk about today is the Emergency Connectivity Fund. And this was funded through the American Recovery Act, which is our latest round of funding for COVID. It was passed in March of 2021, and it sets aside $7.1 billion for home access to support directly K12 remote learning and homework gap. So it is dedicated for home funding for school districts to work with their homes of their students and get connectivity and access to those students who don't otherwise have it. It was introduced on March 16th, and they asked and started scheduling comments. So the FCC, as they typically do when they have a new program, they send out a question document. I like to call this particular document for ECF the list of 5,000 questions, because the document was huge and there were several questions that they wanted input in. It was the biggest one I've seen in quite some time. They gave until April 5th for those first comments due. Illinois, myself and other partners in Illinois, we worked with CETA and SECA, who I mentioned earlier, to provide some comments and to really give our input at a national level for that first round of comments. So it was answering those initial questions. We provided some comments there. There were 95 comments that were turned in nationwide in that first round that was due by April 5th. And then, as is traditional, they have a reply comment period. So between April 5th and April 23rd, you could go read all the comments that everyone wrote from all the various school districts, associations, providers, et cetera, that responded. And then you could reply to their comments and say who you agreed with or didn't agree with, propose new ideas or initiatives, et cetera. The Learning Technology Center did post a reply comment and also continued in conversations and partnership of reply comments with CETA and SECA. So we did do our own reply comment period. I will also let you know that the City of Chicago's Chicago Public Schools and Chicago Library System did do the initial first comments together as well. And so we really wanted to make sure that we had a voice for all of the other school districts and libraries in Illinois. And so that is why we went ahead and jumped in there and did a reply comment that was due by April 23rd. So we've had the first round of comments, we've had the reply comments. And then on April 30th, the acting chairwoman sent out her draft report for additional input. And so at this point, the comment period is over, but associations and individuals can still do what's called an ex parte and give their input on what they see in front of them after the comment period is over. So there are several people who are entering into ex parte conversations. And then again, behind the scenes, those are conversations that I'm trying to keep my ear to the ground and know what's happening. And so that's what I'm going to share with you today. By legislation, they have to release this program by May 10th. So we will very shortly see the program release and what it actually looks like moving forward. This is where I have my disclaimer and tell you the following information is subject to change. So we have seen this draft report. I have read it. I have some notes about what is contained within this draft report, but I also have some things that I know are floating around in cyberspace and comments that people are giving back to the report that I will share with you today. At this point, I feel pretty comfortable that I have my head wrapped around what the program will entail and what it will look like. But again, somebody could come up with a fantastic idea, submit an ex parte and send it to the FCC, and that could be incorporated into the actual program that we will see on May 10th. So know that there are still a lot of ideas being thrown around, but we do have a little bit more clarity than we had a few weeks ago. Again, the FCC received 95 comments in the initial period and another 90 reply comments. So that is a huge number for the FCC. There were also an additional 30 ex parte filings. So that was either individual meetings with commissioner staff or just extra comments that people wanted to comment on that didn't line up with the comment delivery dates. So again, my information that I'm sharing you today is not the gospel. It is not really top secret and confidential other than the fact that they are my own impressions and thoughts. And please don't take everything that I say as 100% true. If the program comes out next week and you see something different, then I gambled in the wrong way. But this is not E-rate is the first thing that I want to tell all of you. And that's what I'm seeing on a lot of the message boards. It is aligned to E-rate, but it is not E-rate. So it is not going to be for your district connectivity. It is not going to be for your district internal connections or the sharing of your broadband within your buildings. This is outside of your buildings, not inside your buildings, but it will be managed by USAC. So we know right now in the draft form, it does say it will be managed by USAC and they are the designee that the FCC is planning to use. We also know that it will leverage E-rate application process and forms. So we expect to see some rendition of the 471 with hopefully with a lot less pages and work than what we have currently. But we do expect that they will leverage the forms that do exist to speed up the process and not go to the drawing board and design new forms. So it's looking like where the EBB kind of leans towards the Lifeline program, this one will lean towards the E-rate program and its process. It again is for home access and not campus use. And this is really clear in both the initial request for comments as well as the draft form that we've seen. They want to make it very clear to school districts that this is dedicated for the homework gap or remote learning use. We do expect that it will contain retroactive spending options. So in the initial draft, it says funding for options after July 1st, 2020. There are a lot of people out there pushing for that to be back to March of 2020, to the start of the pandemic. And so I think that there's some potential for that to change, but we do expect that there will be some retroactive spending options. This means if you used local funding to secure Wi-Fi hotspots that you distributed to your students, if you used local funding to purchase equipment like Chromebooks or laptops that you're sending home with your students, and you spent local funds on those, there is potential here to use this fund to reimburse your district for what was spent, depending on when those purchases were made. Also, it cannot be used if other COVID relief funding was spent. So if you used local funding, you'll be able to reimburse yourself. But if you used COVID funding from your COVID relief funds, CARES 1, as I like to call it, which is what you guys have had for this school year thus far. If those funds were used to purchase those devices, you may not leverage this fund. That would be considered double dipping. So please know where your money is coming from and what you've used thus far to buy those access points and those devices or connectivity options. However, it will be 100% reimbursement. So unlike E-rate, where you are on the line for your discount share, there is no discount here. It is 100%. So if you paid $100 for a Wi-Fi hotspot and $40 a month for that access, the entire $100 plus the $40 a month would be eligible for this program. It is dedicated towards connectivity, home connectivity, and connected devices. So there will be devices eligible for this funding, as well as the devices, not just to run the connectivity, but like laptops and end user devices as well. They are calling them connected devices, which in my translation means that might be like the built-in LTE type of devices. But I'm sure that we'll see a combination of those requests as well. And hopefully that will be clarified in the program for us. The draft proposal has a lot of things that they're setting forward that are really promising. So many people from the field are supportive of the fact that they're saying schools and libraries will have to prioritize students without connectivity. So it's not really meant to be a blanket for all of your students, but the ones that it's been hard to get the connectivity options for. So those students that do not have connectivity without your support, that's who you'll be focusing on. In addition, we were successful in our attempts through the reply comment and the comment period to say, you really should waive the competitive bidding requirement. So for those of you who participate in E-rate, we do have to put out a 470 and wait 28 days and evaluate all those bids. In the interest of time and effort, we really, there was a strong push from the public to say, hey, we don't want there to be a competitive bidding nature here. We want you to just be able to choose what's available in the marketplace and get that and go with it. And so that looks like that's leaning on our direction. There will be no limitation on where students and library patrons are physically located. So if you buy Wi-Fi hotspots with this, of course, those Wi-Fi hotspots can transition and move to those students, but there was a big push in several of the urban areas to say, hey, I want to be able to fund connectivity options to the local community center or the local after school program spots that our students are when they don't have connectivity at home. We have been funding and providing access at various other community spots, and we want that to be eligible for the funding. And it looks like it will go that direction. In addition to that, they have included pricing transparency. So in reports after the fact, you will be able as a district to come in and see what were the options that other school districts in your area used and what was the cost that they paid for those options. And that will be transparent to you. So even when this funding ceases to exist, you will at least be able to leverage and know that you got a good deal and that other people got deals around you and what that looks like. And this has been something that the program has really tried hard to do in E-rate with sharing the cost of connectivity at the school building. This kind of takes that to the level of the home and the commercial readily available internet in your area. They have designed some performance metrics. They look very straightforward. How many were not connected before and how many did we get connected? How successful the program went in timeline wise, like how quickly did we get money out the door to people and things like that. So those are outlined in that original draft and those look promising. In addition to that, one of the big pushes that we were asking for is this funding can be used for Wi-Fi on school buses and library bookmobiles. So that is something that has not been eligible for E-rate. It will be eligible for this program. At least that's the way that it looks right now. And I feel like that's something that we will see a lot of schools being able to benefit from. So if you are currently paying for Wi-Fi on your school buses or you're interested in that, this is the right funding for you for that. And the funding will be limited again to those fundings, to funding local funding, basically funding that is not your COVID relief funding, et cetera. You can't double dip here. You're going to have to pick and choose which program you're paying this out of. So if you have leveraged the funding that we've had in the state, whether that is the digital equity grant funding or whether that is the CARES funding to do your resources, you've already gotten it paid for. Leave these monies for those who you haven't paid for yet. Or for the other districts who didn't have the opportunity to have access to those funds. You can't double dip with this and there will be some cross references on that. And lastly, there was a big push from the field that there should only be a 45-day application window. And it looks like USAC has, or the FCC has heard us on that front. It will be short window of 45 days to expedite the funding out the door and to the school districts so that they can secure the connectivity. There are some concerns about this draft proposal, and they are being publicly shared by a lot of different entities that I have on the next page for you. Currently, the draft proposes that there will be 2 rounds. The first round will be expenses made between July 1st and April 30th. And I said on the previous slide, we really would like to see that back to March 1st. So for those of you who hit the ground running as soon as the pandemic started, that you would be able to reimburse yourself for those expenses as well. So there's a push to push that back to March 1st. Of 2020 to make sure that that's taken care of, with a proposed second round that would be expenses after May 1st of 2021 through forward thinking expenses. There's some concern with this because this puts a added focus or an availability on retroactive expenses stronger or higher than the demand for current expenses. And there's a lot of people in the field that feel like we would be better served by having one big round that covers all of the funding, whether it's retroactive or whether it's moving forward. So those of you who kind of have things in play and have been waiting for the funding and waiting to see what things are looking like, there are voices out there saying, hey, I want to have first shot at the funding. I don't want to wait until the second round to take care of the student that I have identified today as needing connectivity. I don't want to lose my opportunity to those who I identified last week. So there are some people moving forward in conversations with that, and people on the fence on both sides of that argument. In addition to that, many entities asked for there to be some sort of budget allotment. Or some kind of indications of how much money is there, similar to what we see in category 2. That does not look like that is in the draft proposal, but people are still asking for it. So there is a concern that if you do retroactive funding, and if you base the delivery method on poverty level, that our really urban areas, our Chicago public schools, Miami-Dade counties, LA, et cetera, will suck up a lot of the fund right off the bat, reimbursing themselves for expenses they've already made. And that kind of leaves our rural connectivity issues as a second round. And that's something that is concerning to several of us that deal with rural schools in our states. So there is no budget allotment right now, but people are still pushing for that, to there to be some sort of leveraging for both rural and urban schools, so that we would make sure that everybody would get a little piece of this pie instead of big portions of the pie going to some individuals and the rest of us being left when the funding is expended. There is only a bare reimbursement method at this point, which looks like as a school district, you would go out and you would secure connectivity for homes. But if you did so, you would have to expend all of it first and then file for reimbursement. This isn't a new process because we do bear 472 reimbursements in the E-rate program. However, we also have the option in E-rate to get a discount on the bill and to only pay your share. And so there is a concern that school districts may not have the cash on hand to go out and secure devices and connectivity and then be reimbursed. They want some assurances that school districts will not go put money out on the line and then have to wait for that money to come back into their coffers, and that there maybe needs to be some looking into how do we make that work, or how do we bill providers directly instead of school districts funding it and then waiting for reimbursement. So there's some concern around that as well. Right now, the only way that you are verifying which students have an unmet need is just a certification. So you're basically, it looks like you'll be checking a box that says, out of the 1,000 school students in my building, I have 20 of them that are unmet need. But there's no like real verifier or specifics for identifying how those students will be identified. So a school district or a home could say, hey, I have a need. And it's just kind of up to self-reporting at this time. So there are some that are concerned about they need a little bit more direction or some clearly defined definitions of what would be an unmet need. But also, we don't want to restrict it down to a definition that would limit you from serving students that you need. For example, if you have a wealthy farm in your home, in your school community, that just does not have connectivity at that location. There's no broadband connectivity per wireless. The wireless signal is terrible. There's no connectivity through your local telecom providers or cable providers. They just don't go that far out of your community to connect them. And the only option really is a satellite service, which is cost prohibitive to the home, even though it is a wealthy farm and it is not somebody eligible for free and reduced lunch. We want to make sure that you can still meet the needs of those students as well as the ones that live in town and meet the poverty level. So there's a lot of different considerations that we have to think about. And right now, just checking a button feels like we would love to trust all school districts to just be honest and check a button, but we know that there have traditionally been some bad players out there. We just want to make sure everybody's above board. So it'll be interesting to see how they define that or what that looks like. There is really no clear guidance on USAC what they should do or what forms they should use or what that should look like. For those of you who have participated in the E-rate program, the process can get quite lengthy and detailed. And so there is a concern or a request for those of us who live in that world that they be very specific with USAC on their expectations and maybe guide them towards what form to use or what changes to forms to make, or at least require USAC to have some kind of a panel or an advisory board or something gathered from applicants in the field that kind of suggests to them what would be an easy process. What we don't want to happen is that it be such a burden for school districts to get funding from this that they choose to just not participate. We really do want people to be able to leverage this funding and not to have a bunch of hurdles to jump through. And finally, there are some limitations on innovative solutions. So I know some school districts in our state have put up their own LTE network equipment on their buildings and are sharing out their current school district access to reach homes that didn't have connectivity. I think that is a fantastic method of serving your community and being able to connect those students who really need connected. There are a handful of those in our state of Illinois, but there are also a handful in every state. So there's a big push to say, hey, if we want to encourage a provider to build into a neighborhood, or we want to share our internet access from our school district out, there is a restriction here for new builds and restricting the expansion of district networks out into the community. And so we would really like to see that waived. Also, there's a really, really big push in the comment period and before and after for other things. Right now, if you do share your district network out with the homes in some way, if it's even dedicated towards providing a loop back to you, kind of like in a VPN so that you can do filtering, et cetera, those are supposed to be cost allocated out of your E-rate applications. So if you have a gig of bandwidth and you're sharing 200 megabits out to the community around you, you're supposed to be taking that 200 megabits off of your E-rate applications per the rules of the E-rate program. There are several of us that would really, really like to see a waiver of that rule, to just take that rule off the books and allow you guys to do what you need to do in order to connect the community around you. And so a big push for that is not also not addressed in the draft proposal. And so we're seeing that as a request from the field. These are the associations that are being the most vocal and are saying, hey, some changes, what you have here looks great, and there are still some changes that need to be made. Most of those are the ones that I addressed on the page before this one, but there are some really vocal organizations coming out, including the American Library Association and also CETA and SECA that I mentioned before. Several of you are also members of COSN, and so COSN is at the table, as well as the Schools, Health, and Libraries Division that works with the E-rate program, and even some of our consultant organizations like Funds for Learning who have come to the table to say, hey, this is what we want to see. So these are the ones I'm hearing the loudest in the marketplace. There are other associations like the NEA and things like that who are also bringing their voice to the table, but these are the ones who have been readily involved in E-rate and are down into the weeds of what this application process would look like, and really, really strongly advocating on behalf of schools and libraries. That all relates to the CARES funding that you've gotten. So I like to call it CARES 1, CARES 2, and CARES 3, because that makes sense in the funding waves that are coming to you. But in reality, the CARES Act funding came out to you to cover after the pandemic through the end of this current school year. So I think those expenses are to be spent. Those monies are to be spent and used in the 21-22 school year. That CARES Act funding also included the digital equity grant that was available for the State Board of Education. So these are federal funds that flowed through the state board using the title formula out to your school districts. And so the first round of funding that you saw with that was called CARES Act. The second round of funding for that, which is roughly 4 times the first, that funding and those applications were released, I believe, about a month ago from ISB, and that funding will cover until June 30th of 2024, if my figures are right. So that second round of funding, those applications are open. You can tell ISB and put together a budget and say, this is how we'd like to spend it, but that will definitely focus on next school year. So right now your school districts may be focused on spending the first bucket of money, or maybe you spent all of that on hand sanitizer. And now you're looking at the second bucket of money and what you're going to spend that on. There is a third bucket of money. So you can see the second one was released in December of 2020. And like I said, the budgets are available and up, and applications are there on the ISB's website for our school districts in Illinois right now for that. The American Rescue Plan was about 8 times the first. And so you really are seeing, I talked to a school district last week who got roughly $50,000 from the first CARES Act round. They are expecting about $400,000 from the COVID relief package round, and we'll get another $800,000 from the American Rescue Plan. So you're really looking at roughly $1.5 million for that district. That district has 1,500 students. So this is a lot of money flowing at you for over the next few years. That is a fantastic thing. I'm happy that school districts are getting money. It is also an awful lot of money to spend in a short amount of time. And so you'll have to leverage this money along with the other funding sources that I just talked about. However, the COVID money can be spent on a wide variety of things. Technology is just one of those pieces. So if you are not one-to-one and want to be, if you are wanting to delve into innovation centers, like we talked about when I got on the call earlier today, you're wanting to do some really innovative STEM work and VR and things like that, now might be the time to position yourself for these funding sources. But know these funding sources also can be used for learning recovery. So 25% has to go towards some kind of learning recovery. You can also address social emotional needs with these funds. You can also revamp your school ventilation systems with these funds. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with this funding to really prepare you for our next pandemic. And I know that sounds pessimistic, but that was really the design, to catch up for what we've lost in learning, as well as prepare you for future needs. And so there's a lot of money headed your way. But know, if you leverage these funds for your connectivity and your devices, you cannot leverage these other funds. So please know that you kind of have to pick and choose what you're doing, and know all of these different buckets of funding that are coming into you, and then have some real communication within your district leadership about what each one of these things want to be used for. And there may be some really valid things that your district has to do in order to be up to speed, whether that's repairing ventilation systems or hiring a accredited school counselor to deal with social and emotional needs, or whether it's hiring tech coaches across your district to really work with teachers in the classroom to implement all the technology that you've purchased. So a lot of different ways that this funding can be spent, but it is a lot of funding. Again,
okay, Mindy, hang on, Mindy, real quick.
Okay.
We're at
Time.
almost the hour. So I just gonna say, folks, we're gonna stay around longer if you need to stay. If you need to go, we understand, because we told you it would be an hour. So I just want you to know that we're not closing the door here, unless, Mindy, is that true? Can you stay a little longer?
I am not. I was trying to talk as fast as possible.
Right, I know, but
I'm just not getting through all the information.
Right, I know you got so much stuff. So I just want to make sure, because people are gonna want to be leaving soon. So are you able to hang around for a little longer?
I absolutely am.
Okay.
And if you have more questions or things, we do have a community set up at the LTC. So you can visit community.ltc.org, and there's a lot of different groups in there. The E-rate group is one of them. And I will be posting updates about all this other funding to the overall group as well, not just the E-rate group, but know that you can ask your questions there if they come up in conversations too.
So just to know, for those who have to leave, we will be posting mini slides on our website under past meetings there, so you can access all that. So, and then the resources Minnie gave you. So if you got to go and you didn't write everything down, please find them
And in the
there.
chat, I'm going to put in here the link. I know you guys have been putting your survey, but I'm going to paste the link to this presentation. So if you need to take that and digest it and go back and ask me questions
Right.
later, you're welcome to. You're also welcome to share that with others. Just make a copy in your Google Drive.
Yeah, help us get the word out. I mean, that's the purpose of why we exist, is to get the valid information, and why Mindy has her job and she does what she does too. So we work together to get information so you guys aren't guessing. So please, it would help us if you could fill out the survey. I did fix it. Some of you pointed out that I had the wrong date in there. So we appreciate that. That just lets us know. I did manage to figure out who was here, but it helps us to know if you have suggestions, and we hope you attend future meetings with us, and we're going to hang around a little longer too. And I think at this point,
like we have a question in the chat here. Kim has asked, can the devices be used for staff to use remote? Yes. So in particular, the emergency connectivity fund is, yes, focusing on students and staff. I know I say students a lot because I'm used to that verbiage with E-rate, but it is students and staff and everybody in your district that you're supporting. But monitors and other technology staff to use at home as document cameras. So I'm not sure, and we will see about the American Connectivity Fund. I really feel like they're going to kind of funnel that down to connectivity and laptops or connected devices. Like, I think that that's kind of where that's going to settle, but definitely any of those other CARES, COVID Relief, or American Recovery Act, those are all those extra monitors, technology to manage the devices that you've deployed, filtering, and also document cameras and things like that. That's all eligible expenses for those CARE funding sources.
And I'll throw in there too, just as Mindy said, with all this money going out there, and every school in the country is going to be spending it and having a lot of money to spend. I know companies like ours in this side of the industry is going to be overloaded with requests. And a lot of companies won't have the staff or the people to keep up. So if you know what you're going to, and I know you can't, but if you know what you're going to do, move quick. Especially if it involves installing things and installation teams, and some of you experienced this. If you wait too long to get in, you're going to get the C, D, F, G teams to do your installs, and not the best people out there. The companies will catch up eventually as the money starts going, and they'll hire people. But right up front, it's going to be a scramble. And not only that, just for equipment itself, we're already back ordered on a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff is hard to get.
Across the state, Lee, as we saw many school districts that tried to purchase in that March, April timeframe of 2020 that had to wait until the fall or even the winter before they got the devices they requested. So there is a nationwide shortage on a lot of things technology related, worldwide actually. And so there are going to be delays for things. If you can outline how you want to spend your funds and what you need, better to get those purchase orders out sooner rather than later. And bookkeepers will hate that I said this, but better to just get the purchase orders out there and figure out which fund you're paying it out of later. Do that shell game a little bit later to say, okay, well, wait, now maybe I can leverage these emergency connectivity funds for XYZ, so I can use the CARES funds for ABC. And so I think we're going to see a lot of that finagling there in the business offices to make sure that we meet everybody's needs.
Well, just finding things, if you have a process that you're going to go through to demo things or try them out, everybody's going to be scrambling just to get demos and things out to people. So just be aware of that.
Also the opportunity to kind of leverage those things that you wanted to do to kind of embrace that classroom change model, do some flipped classroom ideas, get some video in the hands of your students, get some hands-on STEM activities that you haven't had before. And those are cross-curricular. They're not just science and technology related. So you can really impact your learning in math and English and social studies with those same technologies that look like they are leaning towards science. So it's time to get creative and really make the most out of your funds. Don't just go out there and buy a bunch of software packages hoping that people will use them. Make sure that you bundle and include professional learning with those. Make sure that you, if you're going to buy a bunch of stuff for a STEM lab, that you train some teachers or pick some lead teachers or hire some coaches to really work with teachers and make sure those things get used.
And I'd say leverage the community groups you have out there, like what the LTCs and the tech forum like this, because as companies get spread out all over the place, and instead of seeing 100 individual schools, if they could schedule something with us. So let us know if you have things in mind. And that same can go for Mindy as in her people in her office. As if there's 10 schools are all looking to do the same thing, we could pull something together, do 10 at once instead of doing, one at a time. That will save everybody's time and resources. So,
I think we'll see some innovative things from higher ed reaching out to support too. So I've heard some
Yeah.
really cool projects happening through the Department of Innovation and Technology involving U of I and some of the community colleges to really do some cool things and work with school districts on projects. So
my point is we need to be talking and communicating and not being in silos now, because we're going to have to.
Right. There
make
are
the
a couple
most
of
of
school
this.
districts that called me that it's a grade school and high school in the same town. And they've already convened a committee to talk about how they're going to connect all the students, because, the same homes that have your first grade students are the same ones that have your freshmen in high school. Two different districts, but one community home to serve. And so do communicate if you're in those non-district wide K-12 districts in your grade school, middle school, and high school, that you do communicate with those other partner districts and make sure that you're meeting everybody's needs that way. Don't just assume that the grade school district is going to cover that household when that student is going to be your middle school student next year.
Yeah. So we appreciate you being involved in advising us what you need, so we can gear our what little role we play. Though that helps us is you think of things, and please let us know. And we may know 4 other districts who are doing the same thing, or more. So communicate now.
Again, the link there, the bit.ly is LTC Other Funds. Please do make a copy of that in your drive, share it with someone, reach out to me if you need to have some questions. My email address is down in the lower right-hand side. And from our LTC Illinois website, there's an About Us, and you'll see my picture there. There's even a schedule a time with me. So you can, if you've got a team together at your district that kind of wants to discuss leveraging all of these funds or what the options might be, you're welcome to schedule a time on my calendar. I use Calendly. So there's 30 and 60-minute options, and you can schedule a Zoom meeting directly with me if you'd like to do that. That's what I'm here for. Again, I'm really looking forward to next week to finding out what this actual order does look like. We're a little ahead of the game here. But I do have a pretty good idea of what I think it will have, and I'm looking forward to seeing what it really is defined as next week.
Yeah, and I'll communicate with Mindy as the real news comes out, and watch what she's doing, but we can put something out too as she tells us.
Again, this is flexibility for you guys. So really you have the option to do what you need to do. If you have 15 students in your district that need connectivity, 5 of them might be well served by Wi-Fi hotspots, with another 5 with landlines through your local cable provider, and another 5 that we might have to tab into Elon Musk's new satellite service for. So know that these programs are really designed to meet all of those students where they are. We just have to know what it is that they need. And so you are the best ones to know what your district's students need, or teachers or staff on that point. So we just want to make sure that we get everybody connected, and hopefully if we have successful use of all of these funds, that they will see the mission and the goal for ongoing connectivity funding for the homework gap past 2024. That would be great. So I think if we can successfully use these and not have any terrible mishaps along the way, that we can really prove a case for continued funding and making connectivity at least a more universal service nationwide.
Anybody got questions out there they want to ask? Just unmute yourself.
Yep.
Yeah, it should be able to unmute. Overwhelming, I think. Usually this group isn't so quiet.
A lot of information.
Bill Howard, I see you're pondering. Your mind looks like you're a lot of, well, you all do. You have much on your minds.
I just always look deep in thought. I don't know why.
I think there's a term for that.
Or grouchy. I look grouchy too.
Yeah.
You got nice lighting in your office, though. At least you're awake.
Okay, well, if there are no questions, we're doing this again at 1 o'clock. If you missed something, want to come back, and we'll be putting the recording up soon, and Mindy's got to be your resources. So she's put those out there. So you're welcome to come back later and come and join us in those of you who are the really techie geeky stuff back on May 19th. Hopefully we'll see you again.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and I look
Thank you,
forward to
Mindy.
working with everyone and making sure we spend all this money in a great way.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm gonna stop recording now. If I can hit the stop recording button.
Lee, are you gonna send the link for the recording?
I